I think broadly, my take is that the current understanding of the rise of populism is not fully accurate. So the standard storyline that tries to explain the phenomena of global populism is that that economics is broken. What has happened is because of the super globalization of the last 25, 30 years, right, under WTO and the international trading regime, which has given particularly access to global market for China. Right? So China joined WTO in 2001, got sort of favored nation treatment from the US, right? And therefore China's export market opened up in the US, and which has led to this sudden rise of China. So I think that globalization and related developments, particularly with China, is what is seen as the larger reason behind this backlash. Right? And because of this, China becoming the world's factory, people begin to lose jobs in manufacturing, particularly, which were the sort of blue-collar jobs, not just in the US, but around Western countries. And that has the loss of those jobs, the breakdown of community, and therefore the despair, which has taken over much of this blue-collar world. And that's the explanation which has been given for the rise of populism in the US, and I think much around the world. Though obviously that does not gel. If you see the current regime in India as a populist regime, then that's not the reason why I think the current regime has come to power from that point of view. But anyway, that's a larger global story. My sense is that that's not fully accurate story. I think globalization has been generally very positive. There's a lot of research being done in terms of impact of China in the US and the Western countries particularly, which doesn't really stand up to the scrutiny if you begin to look at the data about the imports from China and the deindustrialization in much of the world. Right? To my mind, what is broken, first and foremost, is the politics. Right? What is broken is that we have not been able to deal with the challenges or emerging challenges in the late 20th century, early 21st century. And those challenges are the ones which should have been dealt with by the politics in these countries. It's not so much an economic issue, but much more a political issue. Right? And why is politics broken? I think it's broken fundamentally because the rules of the game that apply to politics are not as transparent, nor as accountable, right, nor as democratic as they are for the economy. So we look at, for example, the basic unit of economy being a firm or a company. The rules which govern a company, right, in India or any other country for that matter, are far more severe, far more detailed. They require a huge amount of transparency and accountability from the companies. Now, if you compare those rules that apply to companies with the rules that apply to, say, a political party, political parties are the basic unit of democracy, just like companies are for the economy. And the rules that apply to political parties are rather feeble, right? They are not as watertight, right? They don't require much democracy even within the political parties, even though they are supposed to be serving the larger cause of democracy. Right? There are, as you know, there are hardly any elections that happens in the political parties in India. And I'm sure that's true with many, many countries in a similar situation. So I think what is broken are the rules that govern political parties, right, which is the basic unit of democracy, and the larger rules of govern the democracy itself. So as we know, the public choice theory and the constitutional economics tells us a lot about how the constitution and the rules which are laid down in the constitution are so much more important, right, in structuring the interaction within the economic domain as well as in the political domain. And those rules, I think, are not thought through, have not been updated as the society and economy have evolved. And unless we update those rules that govern democracy, that govern particular political parties, I see that that fixing cannot happen. And that's where I see is the biggest challenge in addressing the populist problem. Not just from liberal point of view. I think one can argue what kind of rules liberals will want to see governing political parties and the democratic institutions. But I think generally from any particular point of view, those are the important rules that need to be thought through. Just to give an example, we know that India has the first past the post system. The presidential election in the US is done through a primary system. There are many such electoral systems around the world. And we know that quite often the result of an election is not so much is what voters want, but it's also a result as much of the electoral system through which we process the preferences of the voter to convert them into a final outcome. Right? And I think there has not been much thought around the electoral systems, which are better ones, what impact they have currently in the outcome of the elections. Right? So ideally, you want an electoral system, right, that converts the preferences of the voters as faithfully, as comprehensively as possible into the outcome that voters would like to see in terms of who are the elected representatives and how are they going to be governing the system once they are elected. And I think those rules are not really robust. Those electoral systems are not so robust. Right? And that, I think, fundamental problem of democracy, of how effectively are we able to convert voter preferences into final electoral outcomes or in the final election of representatives. Right? That's the fundamental issue in the whole process, not really deeply thought about. As you know, we have probably more than 100 democracies in the world, and each one has a very different system of electing representatives at the local level, state level, or provincial level, or at the national level. Right? I think there needs to be much deeper thought around that. And I suspect that is really the thinking that needs to be done by liberals as well as by the people who are concerned about the current populism that is on the rise. And unless we are able to fix politics broadly defined, I don't really see how we can address the populist challenge.